Welcome back. In another video, I talked about how to value distressed companies, focusing specifically on asset valuation and its liquidation value. Today, I want to dive into something equally important: pricing strategies and bidding in distressed acquisitions. But hey, you think, what is a professor sitting here in cycling gear? Well, firstly, I'm not a professor, rather only a PhD in banking and finance. Secondly, I love road cycling and I'm late for my tour. So let's get it done quickly. Let's start by cleaning up an important distinction: company value versus company price. Many speak about company valuation and mean it. Okay, others talk about it and actually mean price. Value is the assessed value of a company, either intrinsic or market-based. You determine it for yourself. Price, on the other hand, is the actual amount you pay, which is negotiated between you and the others. Today, we talk about how much you need to pay. The price you pay for a distressed company depends on 4 key factors. Yeah, there are, of course, more than 4 different factors influencing pricing, but for the purpose of this video, let's just focus on these 4. Liquidation value, that we have discovered already in the previous YouTube video. 2, going concern value. There's a lot of stuff on the internet on that, and well, if you're a business school graduate, you will know a lot about it as well. Then the more interesting part that we are going to cover is bidding competition, how to assess that and how to deal with it. And for the company's self-cure capability, or CCC, which is in the processes that we work on, sometimes totally overlooked and surprises a lot of bidders. The key source for most of the information that you're gathering about the transaction will be the seller or the seller's advisor. So I typically go ahead and ask them also about competitive bidders. They usually don't want to answer that question, but something you will get, some sort of reaction you will get. And it's how you react to it that tells you more about the situation than what they really say. So one key indicator is if they are feeling very strong about other bidders, then probably they are more confident in sharing some information about that. If they are not very strong about other bidders, they will be being very vague about what these other bidders are doing and what the sort of background for these bidders are and where they are. Also, most people don't like lying into your face directly, so they will be a little bit more evasive on that part. And yeah, that's a important source of information, but I guess for a newcomer to this, it'll be difficult to evaluate this. So let's go to the next point. The second area to look at is the Q&A process, how your questions get answered from the sellers. So obviously at the start of such a process, there's a data room with a lot of existing material about the company, and that will be there. But if you ask additional questions, for example, you ask about product profitability charts, which are not in the data room, then the speed and the way they answer these questions can give you a clue about how many other bidders are there. If this question has been asked before, then maybe they will provide it very quickly. If the question nobody asked, but it's a super relevant question for the deal, and they still need to prepare it, then you know that there hasn't been anybody else asking that question, and either you're in the pole position or there's just very little bidder activity. Interaction with management can also be a good clue. So during due diligence, on-site visits, or Q&A sessions, assess the behavior of management. The way they interact with you can give you clues about other interested parties. So, for example, if they treat you well and answer all your questions promptly, the chances are better for you that you're in a pole position. If it's the opposite, well, it could be that you're not in a pole position, but also often it can be simply that the management is overworked because it's a super stressful situation and they need to deal with a lot more elements than in an ordinary business situation. So it's a little bit situational, like many of the other things. But yeah, just pay attention to how the management reacts to your questions and how they treat you. So finally, the fourth area is competition. We can actually say it's more sort of competition stands for all sorts of other external information that you don't get from the seller, the management, or the advisors. It would be best to speak to the competitors and find out what they think about this transaction or the market. But of course, you need to pay attention to your non-disclosure agreements, and it can be delicate and sometimes even problematic. Just make sure you don't do anything that could cause some claims from the seller side. But certainly, that is a super useful way of gathering information about bidders and then obviously understanding how to bid for yourself. So the last topic today to assess the pricing and bidding strategy for yourself is the probability of transaction cancellation. Well, actually, this element is probably more something that we need to put at the beginning and to decide whether at all it makes sense to make any offer and any effort to make an offer. Sometimes you can see from the beginning that there is likely to be a cancellation of the transaction. So according to my experience, like there are really three areas that originate this kind of transaction cancellation. So first of all, the company gets out of distress by itself. Can happen. So it just has some time in a workout situation and improves performance and other kind of things. It has happened to me. And in fact, my PhD is about the recovery rate of distressed companies. So I know quite a bit about it, and it does happen, I'd say, in a small percentage, but it does happen. So if you see that in the beginning, you can probably say, well, situation is likely so robust that the sellers may not even sell anymore. The second one is some former shareholder gets into the process and because of his privileged knowledge of the company, he's in a much better position to make an offer that you can't compete with. And therefore, so watch out for insiders who are making offers, particularly former shareholders. That's a question I also ask the seller's advisors typically, and typically I get an answer on that. So if there's somebody internally making an offer, they disclose it. And in such a case, I think twice whether it makes sense to make an offer at all. And finally, of course, it could be the other way around. So the company is in such a mess that there's no reasonable buyer going to make a reasonable offer above liquidation value. That's very common, for example, if the company is asset rich and if liquidation value is above the going concern value. Most buyers don't want to pay more than the going concern value. If liquidation value, because of its assets, is maybe twice as high, then it's just not going to work. So the banks, the creditors will simply say, okay, why should I sell to you if I can recover my loan with liquidating the company? So there you have it. Finally, pricing a distressed company requires balancing valuation, competition, and strategic fit. Always gather much intelligence as possible and use outside information to refine your bidding strategy. Finally, quick disclaimer, this content is for information purposes only. It's not investment advice. Well, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like or comment. There's no reason to subscribe. There is not a lot of content, but if you send me an email with a question, I'll be super happy to answer it. Yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.